Hello Flickering Myth family and welcome to our channel. My name is EJ and I just got out of a brand new movie that they did not screen for critics, but I'm here to talk about it with you all today. Yes, I am diving into this year's remake of The Crow. I'm going to be straight up with you all. I'm not one of those people who holds The Crow as this precious piece of cinema that could never be touched again. Trust me, there's been sequels and remember a TV show I think at one point. Truly, the world of The Crow has been used, ventured into, exploited for a long time. So I'm, not here to be like, wow, as a fan of the original, how dare they do this? Do I think, the original movie is a bit better than this? Of course it is, but I still think this movie has enough in it that I kind of enjoyed it. I don't know. I think I've seen worse movies this year. I think I've seen far better movies this year, but in the tier of middling, superhero-ish, action, thrilling kind of movies, it's fine. It's above Madam Web, surprisingly, but it's definitely under some of the more impactful ones. But I would rather watch this than something like Fall Guy. And I know that sounds crazy to some people, but I found at least The Crow to be an aesthetic, a vibe I matched with. This movie definitely has the good, the bad, and the goth, which is what we'll be talking about today. In this video, I want to plan on diving into the good that's there. It's not much, but I do think this movie's good. It's not as bad as you may expect, but there is some bad we need to talk about, and I want to talk about the gothness of this all, as I've seen some early reviews kind of shade it for being emo and goth, and I'm like, baby, that's what I thought we wanted. Anyways, so yes, we'll get into that in this video, but let's start off with the good, the few good that's there. You cannot talk about this movie without talking about Bill Skarsgård. He is taking on the role of Eric Draven. He is not Brandon Lee, and I definitely think Brandon Lee played the role better, but I liked Bill Skarsgård here. When this man is committed, he is committed and will give you everything. Wow, he pours his soul into this movie, more so than I think he needed to, especially when some of his co-stars are not offering the same level of, oh my god, quality and acting. I love Skarsgård, though. I think he is a filmmaker, an actor since Barbarian, since It, that I think he could take 25 minutes of a role, or he could take an hour and a half, 2 hours of a role if you're talking about this movie, and really make it his own and really breathe life into it. Would I like to see him with the iconic, real, Crow look? Sure, but I kind of liked his trashy, street guy. I know this guy. This is a Post Malone, a Jared Leto Joker. These people exist, and I thought his aesthetic and his vibe fit well, especially with the story that they were telling, that he was a man in rehab, especially a bullied man in rehab that ends up breaking out, and the Crow story that we all know. You know the Crow story, you know it, but it does take some while to get to that story, so we're spending some time with Bill, we're spending some time with FKA Twigs, who is his co-star in this film. I will say their relationship, the melodrama there, I kind of liked. The first 40 minutes of this movie is definitely setting up this love story, allowing us to fall for these characters, at least the best that they can. The characters are written thinly, that's being nice. This is chicken cutlet thin. This is thin characters, but they spend time building with it. That's more than most movies do. I mean, Madam Web this year thrust us into these characters. I can only imagine what Craven or Venom's gonna do. That's kind of the family that this lives in. Those kind of early 2000s throwbacky kind of movies, and I respect what it does, and I respect that this tried to build up some tension, build up the story. The characters make god-awful decisions. Sometimes the characters are making decisions that I don't understand their motivation, but I honestly do appreciate the melodramatic here. I like these two in a relationship about a toxic couple who escapes rehab and is trying to figure out a new life. Remove that away from the Crow stuff, I would have watched the hell out of that movie. In a Crow film, it's maybe not the strongest, maybe not the most engaging for people who are expecting non-stop action or the most brutal thing. For this movie to slow itself down in the first act and really build itself, it is a risk. It's a risk that's not paying off for everybody, but for me, I thought it worked for the most part. Lastly, in the category of good, I will say the action. There's not a lot of it. This movie definitely is scarce on its action scenes. I don't know why I thought this was going to be John Wick, wall-to-wall action, but there is an amazing set piece in that opera house. If you've heard about this movie, if you know any positive reactions, the opera house scene has been the most beloved. But throughout, there's some good gore, there's some good action. The CGI in some of the moments can be a bit distracting, but overall, I like the brutality, what they put into this movie. It really brought me back to an Underworld, a movie like those kind of actiony, horror-inspired movies that I loved. I mean, Resident Evil, Underworld, like I said, those were so fun. Remember Dracula 2000? That's what I'm feeling. That's the vibe I'm going for. A VHS horror movie we would have got at a Hollywood Video in 2002. That's what this version of The Crow is. I like it. Brutality, melodrama, all of that. There is some bad, though. First and foremost, we have to talk about the very, very bland script. This movie is lacking a swag, a sauce, a true personality, and I don't know if that's in the directing, which we'll talk about in a second, or if it's just with this script that is bare bones, thin script. The character descriptions, like, you know how movies have like Bibles where they like kind of flesh out the world, flesh out the characters. Baby, this is the thinnest Bible ever. This is New Testament. They are not giving me anything of worth. They're just repeating stuff. My goodness, give me more. This script just could have had more life, more energy, personality, could have moved better. I like the characters that they want to present. I mean, if they had more layers to it, if they were more fleshed out, if they didn't feel like, you know, characters in the first 2 minutes of a music video, and then we get into the music video stuff and we lose characters and we're looking at visuals and dreams and vibes and all that stuff. Well, yeah, that's kind of how these characters are. They're bland, they're generic. The script as well, in the story department, bland. It's just a bare bones story. I'm glad they didn't try to overcomplicate this. They could have definitely slammed so much BS onto this thing, lore that we don't need. It could have been further of a worse script, so there's that at least. And I have to say, the supporting cast of this movie let everyone down. I love FKA Twigs. I'm about to shade her acting, but I truly want to know, like, I've had the Magdalene album, LP1, like, this has been a singer, a performer I absolutely... Cellophane lives in my heart forever. But at times, this feels like an FKA Twigs music video and not one of the good ones. Like, it just feels like she tries to command the screen, but she's... whispering. I'm like, girl, what you say? Like, she is not the type of lead actress this movie required. I do think her performance, again, is well when the movie is writing around her limitations as a performer, but truly, it's like FKA Twigs could have been replaced. I mean, and it sucks because I love her. I think her and Skarsgård has great chemistry. It felt like a believable couple. It just feels like this was not the movie that I would have tested out, her first big venture into acting. But an actor who's been around for a while, who's phoning it in, Danny Huston. This is his character in Wonder Woman. This is generic bad guy he's played throughout his entire career. This is not American Horror Story, The Axeman. I wanted something more, something wild, something crazy to sink your teeth into, and he's just the worst villain. Honestly, probably the worst villain of the year. The Strangers are really bad. This movie's not as bad as The Strangers or Tarot. There's been worse horror movies than this. I don't know if I think he is the worst. He's up there. He's like top 2 worst villains of the year. I needed more from Danny Huston, but he's given me nothing. I mean, like, Michael Alcott was so good. I would have taken any other actor or any other supporting actress in these things. These 2 supporting roles let down Bill Skarsgård's fairly decent performance. And lastly, let's talk about the goth aesthetic of this movie, something that people have been shading, and honey, what did you want? Like, I would have wanted a different kind of goth. This wants to be Enya, Joy Division, you know, a little bit of The Cure, that kind of goth. I wanted The Used, Slipknot, you know, System of the Down, Marilyn Manson. This movie feels like it's made for that group. It feels like it's the people who loved Underworld, Resident Evil, who were Slipknot fans, who, you know, thought Tainted Love by Marilyn Manson was a bop in 2001. Me, that was that guy. But I felt like this movie should have geared towards that, but it wants to go older goth. It wants to go for a different type of generation of goth, which, you know, maybe trad goth isn't the one I would have went for this movie. I would have went painfully 2000s with this movie. If Manson wasn't canceled, he would have been doing my soundtrack. I would have given this movie a different life, a different personality, and that's what I'm talking about. Rupert Sanders being the wrong director for this movie. I don't know exactly who I would have put. Honestly, at times I feel like Zack Snyder could do a really good Crow movie. Wait, did I just unlock the code of Zack Snyder needing to do the Crow? Let's not do another Crow remake. But it's true, I need a filmmaker with a personality and edge, an edgelord quality. I wish this movie was edgelord. I wish this was like Vera Drew's The People's Joker, which I think is a more outlandish, more in-your-face comic book version of a film. I wanted something more spicy and a little bit more goth, a little bit more, you know, mall goth from the late 90s, early 2000s. That's what I wanted, and the movie just did not give me that. Alright everyone, that is it for my review of The Crow. I've talked about the good, the bad, and the goth of this movie. What did you all think? They made me wait so long to watch this movie, but I finally reviewed it. I didn't hate it. It's not as bad as I thought it would be, but there's pieces here that's missing it from being a cult classic, a movie I would revisit. But for a one-and-done movie, it's not the worst I've seen, it's not the best I've seen. It's The Crow remake for 2024. What did you all think of my review? What do you think of this movie? Share your thoughts down in the comments below. Give us a thumbs up if you did enjoy, and make sure you subscribe to Flickering Myth for more videos just like this. Alright everyone, let's talk about The Crow, the original, this new remake, right down below.